So ArenaNet is the company that is creating Guild Wars franchise. It's Guild Wars 1 and 2. They were acquired by NCSoft in the early 2000, I think, 2002. I read that somewhere. So that's the interesting thing. They bought the company long time ago. That was long before both Guild Wars 1 and 2. So Guild Wars Prophecies was released 2005. So that is about 3 years after the acquisition from NCSoft. The interesting thing here is why I'm saying that is because basically NCSoft kind of owns both of these games and other games as well. But ArenaNet is originally American developer and NCSoft is Korean. Okay, so they're a Korean company. And I would say a lot of the Korean games are very similar in the way like how they make the grind work, that they're also pay to win and so on. But Guild Wars 2 is pretty much the opposite. It's completely different. I don't know too much about Guild Wars 1. So Guild Wars 2 was released 2012 actually, and it has nothing to do with these other Korean games. It has only horizontal progression. It's not pay to win at all. It's pretty casual. It's really weird how this works. Like, kind of let that happen, since their whole idea when they make games is to keep players in by just simply make the game very grindy and also pay to win and so on. Kind of like unforgiving, and Guild Wars 2 is the opposite of that. I feel like they just, they bought the company, but they said, you're going to keep your philosophy. Maybe that was some sort of agreement, I don't know. But even up until today, the game is still not pay to win. It's very casual, just horizontal progression, even though the original developers, I think some of them left. So yeah, it makes you wonder. And the other thing that they could actually take from that is just take ideas basically from the game and from the developers. They could apply those things in Throne and Liberty when it comes to, let's say, mass PvP events, all those things with Alliance, by the way. Basically, the way they made it work is, as far as I remember, you can have 4 guilds in one alliance, which is, each guild has like 70 people on. So that's going to be up to 280 people in one alliance, and they can just play together, right? They're like friendlies. Whenever we have mass PvP events, but that's not just Castle Siege or Tax Delivery, that's also every single PvP boss. And also that's going to be the case with the Nebula Island. They would all just play together. And up until now, it's not a big deal because you can get the same things from other sources. Like you're not really restricted to anything, right? Like even if you can't really compete for the PvP boss, you can just do the PV version and have the same chance to get same items basically. It's just a bit less, right? If you do the PvP one, you just have extra chance to get something, but it's okay, But for Nebula, it's only PvP all the time. And what I think, it's really bad if it happens. I hope that it's not happening, that it's not gonna happen, but based on what we know about it, Nebula Island, yes. So here it says, players can spend 7 hours per week there. Okay, and you may be thinking, they add this kind of another restriction to make it more casual friendly, right? Because otherwise endgame guilds will always just camp there. Now you'll be thinking, oh, they have only 7 hours per week. So whenever all the big guilds go in there and their alliances, I'm still gonna have some time to farm myself, even if I don't have a PvP guild. You're always gonna have the threat of others, random people attacking you anyway. But of course, if you have a Zerg there of the top guilds, which could be hardcore guilds or just pay to win guilds regardless, you have no chance of doing anything because they'll just dominate the whole map, generally speaking, because it's just one map and it's not really super massive, right? Basically, that's like a couple regions. If you played Carmine's Rage Island, the dungeon, you probably walked through half of the map, more or less. Even though you're strict to 7 hours per week, we did mention that you can have alliances, right? Let's say on my server, Ember server, looking at the top guilds right here, most of these are still pretty active. Like my guild right now is not very active, it's rank 45, but obviously it's way lower score than other guilds. But I could pretty much say that they're at least equal to about 3 alliances, which is like 700 or something-ish players, more or less. They may not be all super active, but my point is, and after a server consolidation, actually going to be even more people because we can check the new servers, right? I would assume that the way they picked up the servers is based on numbers. So let's say all these servers right here have similar amount of people playing like these 2 servers, right? That's why they combine them into one. So let's say these 2 servers have like 1,000 players each, that's like 2,000 people, right? And then all these servers will probably get similar number. And this would be spread across, I think, I'm not sure if this is like shared with console players and so on. Right now on Steam, you can see the numbers are about 25,000. It could be somewhere in that range, maybe a bit less. My point is, if this happens, and also another thing that's kind of scary, Nebula Island, as far as I've heard somewhere, is inter-server activity, which means based on a region, right? So if it's inter-server, at least it's going to be in that region, but that's still way more people than what you would think. I'm not sure if this is correct. Hopefully it's not like that, but if it's like that, then not only that on this server, I would be thinking maybe there are at least, I don't know, like 5, 10 active guilds with a lot of people in there, but you're going to be going with way more people. I don't want to give them ideas, but the worst thing that would happen, and they can actually monopolize the whole area, and those 7 hours of restriction will do nothing to that. The easiest thing they can do is simply, meet up somewhere, right? Maybe on Discord or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like all the big leaders of these guilds, and they can just arrange, like make an agreement, right? Agreement between them. Like for instance, these two guilds, Orca White and Orca Black, pretty much playing together, and it's almost guaranteed that they're always in alliance. What they could do, because even if you're alliance, maybe they don't want to go all together because there's going to be like 70%, that's like 140 people. But they could just make an arrangement. Hey, this day you go with these hours and we'll go with these hours, right? What is stopping them, like all of these guilds and other guilds as well, make such arrangements, like pay to win hardcore guilds, instead of just competing with one another, because that would just kind of like hinder their progress. They could just agree that they will go on different days, different hours. And so in the end, you can see a picture of, let's say, almost every single day, and at almost every single time of the day, you're gonna have some of these guilds farming there because they have that agreement. You know what I'm saying? It can still be very well monopolized based on the number of people. The only time that you may have some chance of going is gonna be like in the most off-peak hours of the day, let's say during the night. Of course, that's gonna be not very convenient for most people because, you're also a human being, you usually sleep during the night. And that's gonna be a time when you're still gonna compete with other randoms, right? So in the end of the day, they can easily restrict this whole map, the whole Nebula Island map. And the thing is, you have unique items that only drop from here. There's gonna be accessories, and you cannot get them from anywhere else. So you're only gonna get the top accessories from here, and you can also get other things as well. I know people say that the accessories have very low drop rate, but regardless, you have a chance to get them, and also you're still gonna get a whole bunch of other items as well. So it's really beneficial to be here. But if they do something like that and they actually restrict players, this is gonna begin looking like Albion Online, which is probably the worst game I've played because of those things. They give so much freedom to players in Albion Online that it's basically full player-driven economy. It's all about monopolies there. Like you can literally buy NPCs there and set up the prices for fees super high, and you're just blocking new players from ever progressing. And you be just kind of grinding the boring stuff just to feed the top tier players while they have fun. And you have massive maps in Albion Online that you're probably never going to have access to unless you actually join such guilds and alliances. And there's a very high chance that this thing happens here, and that's going to be very sad. And there's a very easy solution. I don't know why they thought that this is a great idea to create such a system with alliance. I was talking about that because Guild Wars 2 is a great example of how this could be created in much better fashion. Basically, I'm talking about War of the Sword, which is kind of the mass PvP version in Guild Wars 2. You have these 4 maps basically that are always PvP enabled. Every single week, you go against basically 3 servers going against each other, right? You have 3 major maps and 1 central here, and each of these servers are fighting each other for control, and it's really interesting, really engaging area. These servers that go against each other are randomly selected, as far as I know, and they reset every single week. So this is really simple solution to prevent monopolies. Even if you're a single player, like you don't have a PvP guild, you got nothing. You're just you. You can always go in any of these maps and just look for people from your server. There's always like a commander attack, like massive squads. The game has like big groups of people going around, like Zergs. And most of the time they're open, or they may just need you to be on Discord. But you can just join them. You don't have to attach to them in any way. You don't have to join a guild or anything. Rarely you're going to need to join the Discord, but it's just better if you do. And just play, right? You don't have to be part of anything. All alone, you can be day 1, you can get in the game. Of course, it's casual game, you don't have to grind for gear, but even if you get to grind for gear, the moment you're ready to go there, the moment you have your character geared up, you can go there day 1 and just play. Just play to the full extent of the activity, and you can do this all day long. you have no restrictions. Like, that's a different topic. So no restriction on gameplay time, no monopoly, and 100% fun. Of course, this is way more complex than Nebula Island, because Nebula Island is just basically a PvP area where you just grind mobs and you can just queue players. It's really not a big deal. This is way more complex, obviously. We're not looking for something like that. I don't think we're ever going to get something that big and massive in Throne and Liberty. But at least the concept of how matchmaking is being done, they can literally take that. You know, obviously how this would work in Throne and Liberty is going to be a bit different, but what they could do is completely rework alliances, either remove them or just rework them in some way. You know, it may not be super obvious and easy to do at first. They could have this map being instance, and whenever you join there, they'll be like, they already have that system actually. With the Dominion version of the events is basically what I'm talking about. This is the closest thing to what they have, and they can actually implement the same system. In Dominion events, you have 3 groups of players, and you join randomly to one of them, or I think maybe you can even switch teams. You have red, blue, and green. It's the same version, the same concept. You have 3 groups, and they fight for the objective, right? And they can easily do this with Nebula Island and ignore the guild conditions and alliance conditions, right? You know, like join there and you're randomly assigned to the group based on the number of people that are in the other groups, right? So let's say it's like 20 versus 20 versus 20. So you cannot, like, the idea would be to not go with your guild. I know it sounds a bit lame like that, but they've created this system and they have to somewhat address this and try to work it out, or maybe make it like a battleground so that it's just instance based and you just join. It doesn't have to be 3 teams. It could be just 2 teams anyway, like 250 versus 50 or something like that. And it's like ongoing, like instance based. But if it's just one map and it's inter-server, like I said, it could be monopolized. And even though you have 7 hours, they could just arrange it so the top guilds are always there and you're still not going to have a chance to go there. But we'll see. We have just a couple of weeks to see that. And maybe they're not going to release Nebula Islands on day 1, but it's going to be soon after that anyway. But if that happens, we can all just forget about this area altogether, which is going to be super lame because that's a huge part of the game. It's a whole map. It's not just one event or a field boss. It's a whole map and it's just super lame if that's the case. So yeah, we'll see. You're still pretty much restricted to never do part of the content unless you have dedicated guild for it. Like for instance, they could have made teams again for the castle. They created the content that promotes that kind of activity where you can just have monopolies of the same guilds always winning this, and that's it. Every player would always try to get into this guild,